Good morning. It is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Back here for Daily Shakeup number 1015. And today I want to talk about what's the word I will use? Perhaps the myth of figuring things out. Now, I'm not suggesting that we can't figure things out, but I do want to suggest that often we rely on that phrase or that belief that we are figuring things out when in fact we're not figuring anything out. Recently, someone was sharing with me that they're talking about a business challenge where they had something that they knew and understood, and if they followed this, they followed their process, things worked really well. The problem was sometimes they failed to follow the process, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. And I mean, in the sense that they realize in the moment they're not following their process. And I said, well, what do you do when you don't follow your process? And they said, well, I figure out why I'm not following the process. And I said, well, with all due respect, it sounds like you're not figuring it out because you keep getting back to that behavior of not following the process. And if you figured out why you're not, it doesn't mean you'd be perfect, but you're going to be a lot better because you figured out what's going on. And what I realized is too often we're focusing and figuring out on the wrong question. The wrong question. Because in that case, the question he's framing, or we might frame, is let's figure out why am I doing this? Or let's say another kind of problem that needs a solution. What's wrong with what's going on here, right? So that's our figuring out, and it's in our head. The problem is a lot of times our head misleads us. This is very much unconscious because our head is trying to keep us in a comfort zone that requires no or minimal change. And changing behaviors and therefore changing outcomes is going to require some discomfort. So I think what we want to shift our questions to is something like this. In this example for this person, instead of saying, I need to figure out why I'm not following the process, let's ask the question, what's keeping me from figuring it out? Let's say it that way. What's keeping me from figuring it out? An additional question that might fit well there is, what part of me and why am I holding on to not following the process? Because the reality is, whatever our behavior is, and whether it's conscious or unconscious, we make decisions to get something out of it. I call it the win. We get a win out of it. So if we can figure out what we're getting out of it, even though it's not getting us the results we say we want. So I want these results, I'm not getting them. Our mind will tell us, well, of course I want it, and therefore that can't be the problem. But in fact, often that is the truest obstacle. There's something I get out of the behavior, even if that behavior is not getting me what I say I desire. Now, there's a lot more layers to that, but that's a different question than figuring out why I'm doing this or what we need to change. Let's look at what's in the way, because I believe in most of our desires, the biggest problem is not figuring out how to get there, but removing the obstacles that are keeping us from getting there. So when you start to say, I got to figure this out, let's make sure at a minimum you're figuring out the right question. That's it. Have a fantastic Tuesday.